Those goddamn McMahons, they've ruined all the episodes of my show, GateSlashers. Every single one has been a disaster. The slasher is supposed to kill everyone in the end. That's the bit. That's my bit. Now they've run to Maine? How cliche. What is this? A Stephen King novel? What could even be there? That's it. I'm taking this into my own hands. I'm gonna bury him. I've given so much. Now it's time for me to reap my rewards.
You must understand, you see. I had to do it. It was coming for me. But now I hear it. Him, scratching the walls. No one would miss him, just a vagrant I found on our land. And I was right, there's been nothing. No police, no inquiries, but I gave him work, harvesting the peat from our bog. But I had to give him more. My God, what have I done? It was coming for me. Like it came from my grandfather, our family. I know now what's really scratching behind those walls. I can hear it. In order to receive, you must first. In order to receive, you must. In order to receive first, you must.
In order to receive, first you must give. In order to receive, first you must give. 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 The GateSlashers.
What the hell is this place?
Jake, glad you can make it.
Yeah, Dan. Care to explain this manor that I've never heard of in Maine? Or, the whole grave robber thing who kidnapped all of our friends? But I will admit, it was pretty fun bullying Ethan in the flesh. What, bro? What the fuck is happening?
Just coming out of the rain, I'll try to explain. Also, where the hell did you get that car?
Oh, I stopped for food at a diner. I ever heard these dudes talking about demons, angels, and I swear, I heard them say they met Scooby-Doo? So I talked to them about the grave robber issue. They said fire, and get this, salt. These brothers load their shotguns with salt and not beanbags. Anyway, I stole their keys when they were getting pie. Catch.
Nice. So this manor. You know that comic that I love, The Plot, written by Tim Daniel, Michael Morecei, with art by Joshua Hixson, colors by Jordan Boyd, Kurt Michael Russell, and letters by Jim Campbell?
From Vault Comics, how could I not? You never shut the hell up about it.
Well, there's more to the story than I've told anyone. So, the regular story follows Chase Blaine taking care of his niece and nephew after their parents are killed. They return to the family home in Cape Augustin, Maine. That's here. That's this house. They face a bunch of their generational horrors and the monsters, metaphorical and physical.
Yep, got all that. What else is there?
Well, the Blaine story doesn't really end there. Horror just goes by a different name.
What are you getting at?
Somewhere down the line, the Blaines became the McMahons.
Fuck. That explains the mental illness then. So, someone rebuilt this place. You figure this is where it ends?
Yeah, I figure the grave robber is kind of our bog monster, I think. We have faced him a few times, but it's time to end it.
Well, let's at least end it with an episode about the plot. So, if we don't make it, we at least got a finale?
Yeah, well, any fans of the haunted house subgenre are going to love this one. But I think the plot mostly is about facing your monsters, both metaphorical and physical. Mental illness is a heavy theme throughout this story, and I think it's brought me a lot of strength.
Well, hopefully people can pick up a copy from Vault's website where issue 1 is free. Then they can get the rest digital or physical. For physical, visit your local comic shop. Or call Third Eye Comics and tell them Gatecrasher sent you.
Well, let's finally talk about this book while we wait for our final showdown. So, for our discussion piece, I just want to restate that if you haven't read the book, I highly suggest reading this before we get into this because we are going to give everything away. We're going to be discussing issue by issue. This is a book that I've been waiting to talk about since I read it. I've written about it many, many times. I did the exit interview for the team. This book means the absolute world to me. So if you want to hear a real conversation about this book, please go read it first, then come back. Or you could skip ahead and see what happens once the grave robber gets here.
Walk around and find out.
I wanted to read you something that Tim sent me, one of the authors of the book. Mm-hmm. It's about what the plot, what it started as and how it came to be. So the plot, as partially originally conceived in 2014 as a project entitled The Gloaming. It involved a couple investigators trying to unravel the cause of a series of murders at a bog. The story flashed back a couple of centuries to a family, a trio of brothers, one of which was to be ritually sacrificed into the same bog to preserve the well-being of their village. All of this involved a rival family. The father of the boys was taken instead after he freed them from captivity before the ceremony. Now, generations later, the grudge between the two families, Rasmussen and Sullivan, started again when a bog body, the father, is exhumed and put on display at a natural history museum. As you can see, some of it stuck around, much of it changed, and a lot of it was completely tossed. A very small part of it ended up being a book called The Drumheller from Shadowline Image, drawn by Riley Rosmo. But the story became radically different and pretty much unrecognizable from what it originally was. Then when Mike and I started this in late 2018, we used bits of The Gloaming along with Mike's desire to do a haunted house story, and the plot was born. A lot of the family backstory survived as we used it in issue 5. Okay, so this was your first time reading the plot.
It was, and it was amazing. Normally when you tell me you don't shut up about something, I go and read it and I'm like, oh, this isn't as good as he was saying to me. But this really was. And this isn't me just putting on bullshit for the podcast. This was an amazing story.
Yeah, I think
10 out of 10. Dan was not full of shit this time.
I think that a lot of the themes are things we've dealt with a ton in our lives, especially with our family.
I think it, I mean, we both read this the same way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we can get into that after. Let's talk about that in issue 1.
Because I do think that is important to get addressed in the first issue because
once we get to them, we'll explain that. And it's funny because we've got new background knowledge on that too, which is very funny. So issue 1 is called Of the Past We Grieve. And I do want to read the opening monologue to you just because I think it's important to set the tone for the entire book. My father had a simple maxim. He used to say, in order to receive, first you must give. It was a family motto, in fact, passed down from my grandfather, from his father, and so on. The idea of giving before you take, it's about more than just charity, more than money or material possessions. My father, he gave from his spirit. He gave his time. He gave his empathy. He gave his love. And sometimes that kind of giving, it costs you. It costs you dearly. There's a secret in my father's words. While he was the kindest, most generous man I've ever known, his giving, it transcended altruism. For him, giving was a means of unburdening.
People often called him troubled, and I can't fully disagree with the sentiment. For all his light, he also harbored great darkness. He gave. My God, did that man give what he wanted, though, was something he would never be able to receive back. Peace, a sense of ease within himself. And that is why I argue my father, he wasn't troubled. My father was ill. What do you make of the family motto before we get into that?
Yeah, it's a heavy one with the context of its origins, which we'll get into, I think, in issue part 5?
Yes.
Yeah,
part 5.
It's hard to because we're only talking about issue 1 at the moment.
Feel free to talk about anything, because we're going to talk about the entire series, so it's going to jump back and forth.
It comes off as positive and uplifting, but knowing that it's hard to go back and to say, knowing the fact that to gain all the positive wealth and good harvests that they received in the beginning of the family tree, the initial father had to give the bog monster a life.
Yeah, so Vitus Blaine, he says something that I'm going to talk about in length, but it's he'd rather live through vanity than die on a funeral pyre. I think going into the first couple times I read this, I read it as this is the motto of the family, but I don't think it is. I think the true motto comes later, after they've actually faced the issues. So that opening speech was given by Charles, and Charles is one of 2 brothers. There's Chase and there's Charles. Charles has left St. Augustine, Maine, and lives in San Francisco, and he runs a company. The company's name is named after his father. I'm slipping on that thought. I did not write that down, but he's basically giving a big speech about their company. The company makes medicine for the mentally ill.
Yeah, he's giving a speech to the company for his own birthday, which, and it's not about himself, which is awesome.
Yeah,
it tells you a lot about Charles.
I think he has more of the idea of the father that he's giving, but he's never actually taking the time for himself. And that gets him. Because he talks about how he's inherited that motto from his father and inherited that illness. I think the entire story is about generational trauma and mental illness being handed down from generations and people choosing not to confront it.
And we know all about that, baby.
Yeah. So I think something that's important is that while he's giving the speech, he kind of has a moment where he breaks and he says, we can confront the past, and he stops. He realizes it himself that he hasn't confronted it. He's run away. He's done what his brother's done his entire life. And he's just kind of taking that in. And his wife, Wendy, gives the rest of the speech for him. And he's like, hey, I need a minute. The next page cuts to the phone ringing in Blaine Manor, where Chase is, his brother. And instead of answering it, Chase rips the phone out of the wall.
Yeah, and he was also getting dripped on.
Yeah, the house was dripping. So water is really important in this story, and it kind of takes it's the presence of mental illness sometimes. This is where your symptoms are showing up. It's happening.
Yeah, it's a notation of that sinking feeling that you get.
Yeah,
when you're sinking into your feelings, and I identify a lot with that, and I think we've talked about it since I read your 1 piece on this. Mm-hmm. Sinking into the bog. Yeah.
So I the thing is, and I never spoke about how I read this book.
Yes.
I never wrote it anywhere. I never put it anywhere because I didn't want it to inform your reading of the book.
Mm-hmm.
How did you read this book?
I read myself as Chase and you as Charles.
That's how I read it as well. And I was talking to Tim, and he was sending me the character profiles and like all the stuff about them, and when they initially pitched the book and like their looks and things like that. And I noticed that Charles was 6'2", and I texted Jake and I said, "How tall are you?" And you said 6. And then I looked at the file from Tim about Chase, and he is 6 foot. Tim said it's a lot of him and his brother, Michael and his brothers, and it's like something that you can put yourself into and see. And I think that's what makes this art, like, there's a lot of parts of this that the art is super impactful because you can put yourself there, like you can feel it if you felt these things. I think this is the first book where if someone was like, "Dan, what does it feel like to be mentally ill?" I'd be like, "Oh, here, read this."
Yeah. No, it's a constant struggle, and I think this book really, really captures it perfectly.
Yeah, it's a monster, and I think
It is.
The entire thing of this book that's always touched me is that like it's about facing those monsters and what happens if you don't. Which you and
But I think it's important to note it's a natural monster. Like,
yeah, it's one of the earth.
It when you get to a point of being depressed, you feel like you're sinking anywhere. Like, I can compare depression to sinking and anxiety to melting a lot when I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, because anxiety kind of feels like you're falling apart, while depression feels like everything is coming down on you and pushing you down.
Yeah.
It's a good way to describe it. So a thing that also you mentioned, because we're dealing with a lot of this, that Wendy, Charles' wife, says that their daughter Mackenzie has too much Blaine blood. What she means like that is that she's too much like the Blaines. She's got those, and I think it's the Wonder Years, the devil in my bloodstream. That's always how I refer to mental illness because it makes so much sense. And then the devil.
I have a tattoo idea about that song.
Yeah,
I've told you about that one, right?
Yeah. It's just something that stuck with me, especially in this scene, because like Charles, like, "My daughter, how is it that your genetics have no part in this?" And she said Mackenzie has too much of that Blaine blood, can't follow the rules.
Yeah, and it's interesting because she definitely acts a lot like Chase at times, but like also the opposite of him.
Yeah,
like she's a great foil for Chase.
Yeah, so she is, in her character like thing, she's very much like her father, but Zach is actually more like Chase.
Yeah, in the bios, I only got to read. Yeah, I only read the bios for Chase and Charles. Yeah, but I am seeing the Mackenzie one.
Yeah, I threw that one in there because I did want to talk about Mackenzie. So Charles is killed. The bog monster is a bog white. We'll be referring to it as Boggy, or by his real name, Pickles.
Yeah, this is canon. We know this.
So they get killed. The Charles and Wendy are tossed out their window, and they die. And Chase finds out, and he just starts swinging his sledgehammer. It's a really beautiful page. And then he is the one eulogizing at the funeral. But he hasn't spoken to his brother in so long, and he's like very honest about that. He's like, they made a company and tried to help people. I don't know much about what they did, not exactly, but I do know that his work, the foundation he laid, will live on for a long time. And he, like, his relationship with his brother was gone. Like, he didn't have it for years. And, like, didn't even answer the phone when he called on his birthday. What did you think about his speech at the funeral?
It was very touching. It was very emotional. It was very real. it didn't matter that you've only known these characters for a few pages. You really get them fleshed out in their comparison, and it really works.
Yeah.
You feel all of it.
So Mackenzie, she kind of has a hippie thing to her, and she's talking to her brother, and she's like,
When is it set?
the 70s. I think it's, I can't tell you the exact year. I cannot recall. But it's like the 70s, so there's no cell phones or anything like that. And Zach, the son, has become nonverbal because of the trauma. He's receded into himself, and the only person he'll talk to is Tage, the dog. And I think that's...
who doesn't talk to their dog?
It's him. He's a kid, and the only way he can run is by taking the one thing he has, which is his voice, and hiding it from everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And Mackenzie is like, I don't want... she's literally walking around with the ashes of her parents in her pocket to let go into the sea. But when she lets it go, she says our family is gone. And it's like, they still have Chase, but they don't see him as family because they don't know him. He wasn't there.
Yeah, they only met him 3 times, she claims.
Yeah. And there's a page where Mackenzie is looking at... So the panel is set up, it's 3 panels. It's Mackenzie, and then Chase is in the middle, and then it's Zach, and they're both looking at the center at Chase, who's looking out at the ocean. And Mackenzie says, Uncle Chase, are you serious? First of all, we barely even know him, so I don't care what anyone says about him being our guardian. Second, from what Dad used to say, Uncle Chase probably needs our help more than we need his. And I think that's true, and I think they all need each other, but they don't realize that yet.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about Chase takes them to the Blaine Manor in Cape Augusta, Maine. What do you think the symbolism is of the house being kind of
spooky as shit?
And falling apart as well.
Yeah, it's dilapidated. But, I'm looking at the image of it, the first image of them driving into it, and it's the outside, it looks well kept, but the inside, every image I'm like, when was the last time this house was updated?
Yeah.
That's what Chase is setting out to do throughout. He gives it a good update.
I think the house is representative of the family itself. Like, the family's fallen apart because all that's left is Chase and these kids. Everyone else is dead because they've all turned their backs on the issue. And that doesn't come up till later, but we know that now, and we're looking at this house and we're like, that's the root of it. Like, it's there. The monsters are there. So when they get there, Magnus Sullivan, the sheriff, is waiting for them.
Uh-oh.
So the sheriff hates Chase, and it's clear from the moment you meet him because he's waiting for them. He thinks the Blaine family is cursed. He doesn't want them in the town. He knows some bad things are going to happen. He's like, you don't need to be here. They need to feel safe. Get out of here. So it's like you're automatically confronted with something bad is coming. You know there's something wrong with the Blaines. So, like, basically he confronts him at the house, and it's just a problem.
Yeah, he. I don't like the way that he finds out either. I think it's really telling about the time in the town.
Yeah,
because Magnus finds out is...
It's a great name.
Yeah. Took it for that piece of shit. I think what was it that how he found out? It's that his deputy says something about... Wait, was that in this issue or was the next one?
It's next issue where Reese is introduced.
Yeah.
So
he finds out by them saying that a blonde-haired man with two Chinese children.
Yeah. There is, the town is racist.
Extremely.
Yeah, there's something. There's only a couple of instances of it. It's not a huge part of the book, but it is there. So originally, the Sullivans were going to be the family rival of the Blaine family, but that was cut. Magnus was essentially set up to be Blaine's rival. That didn't really make it. He still hates him, but Tim says
that the rivalry is made out for those two to be about Reese.
Yes, which is. Did you figure out who Reese is? We'll talk about. So, let's get into issue 2. Oh, actually, let's talk about Mackenzie's scene in the bedroom. What did you think of that with the upside down family portrait?
Okay, let me pull that up real quick. Yeah, that was a lot because. But yeah, it looks like roots.
Mm-hmm.
They look like roots, and then the tree is forming behind her.
So my thoughts on this is that the tree has an upside down image of her mother. The picture is upside down. The whole family is upside down. Everything is, the roots are grown wrong because no one will tend to the tree. And then we have Zach, who literally gets pulled down into the bog.
Yeah,
and he calls out for his sister. It's important. And it's the first time we see him actually talk.
And he's being pulled down further. Mm-hmm. And that's how the issue ends.
So issue 2 is all my life I've known ghosts. It opens with a character we haven't met yet, who is Reese. She gives a monologue about ghosts. For you, what did ghosts mean in this story?
In terms of Reese, it was the ghost of Chase, because Chase runs away and she never really gets over him. Ever. Because you find out much later that she hadn't kissed a single human being since, or at all. Because they're set up to kiss, and then it doesn't happen.
So,
and there's a lot more.
What do you think of the use of ghosts in this story?
The ones that are semi-bog monsters?
So, I think there's a distinction between the two. So the bog white, so boggy, is a completely different thing from the ghosts themselves. And the reason
they just come up as bogified.
So when I read it, so for me it was like a ghost.
It's important to know that I've only read this once.
Yeah, So
I have not had the time to think about everything.
It's more of a ghost of trauma.
Yeah.
It's someone you've never met before because they're ghosts, but you're given this haunting, not one you've asked for. So you're literally being passed down this trauma. And I was talking to Tim about this, and he said when Mike suggested ghosts, I was worried. Hauntings are always mainly about some malevolent force. I wanted every ghostly ancestor to be pushing the current generation of Blaines toward the truth. Sure, they're gnarly ghosts, but they're there to direct traffic, not harm. So they're always there as someone to hold your hand rather than to push you into the bog.
Yeah, I think the grandfather is a good example of that.
Grandfather's a mess.
Yeah, because that leads Chase more to the truth of the Blaine. Because I think that's where he kind of starts to understand what the give is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because he couldn't do it. He set something up and he hides it away, and that only makes the whole thing worse.
Yeah. So what we see is Reese is like throwing up this black gook, and Magnus comes in and like tries to help her, and then we go back to Zach, who is being drugged down into the water by all of these hands. Now the hand that comes in to grab him is the hand of his mother.
Mm-hmm.
It's Wendy's hand.
And that's actually Wendy is actually also behind Mackenzie in the tree.
Yeah, so when she pulls him out of the water, the panels, as they progress, it's Wendy's hand, Zach, and then you go back to the same exact position, and it's Reese. I thought that was interesting that Reese was there. Like, she's the one who saved him. But I think she was kind of being like, she was like the conduit of the ghost. Like the ghosts were like directing her. And we'll get into that a little later when we figure out what happened to her. Let's talk about the family dinner, because I want to hear your thoughts on Chase. So he only gets one bag of groceries. He's kind of like, not like a man child, but he's like not fully, he's not a full adult. Like, he's not like fully ready to take care of children. What did you think of the cocoa?
He is a perpetual bachelor. He doesn't seem like the type that goes out grocery shopping. I mean, he seems more like the type who's at the bar every night, and he's probably eating something shitty and working it off in his very physical job.
So my thought about that, I don't know if it was meant to be, but he gets this cocoa, and cocoa is kind of one of those things you always associate with good feelings.
It's comfort. It is a comfort food.
So that's what I don't think he has the emotional tools to actually reach the kids and give them the comfort they need. But he does know that people are comforted by hot cocoa, and maybe he is, but it's something that he can do, and he's trying. He doesn't know how to build yet.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little character thing. Something also about Chase is that he's self-conscious about what other people think of him. Like, he even comments on Zach whispering to the dog that the dog even judges him.
I think that's a good thought in that, because the dog also doesn't listen to Chase. The dog will just run right past him. There's a little respect between the dog and him, and it makes sense, because, I mean, Chase isn't the dog's, not the one who trained the dog, but Chase also still trusts the dog.
So, fun fact about the dog is that Tage was actually supposed to be the third brother. That was the name of the third brother. So the dog is named after the brother who would have been. And
I'm named after a parrot. That's real.
What was I going to say? Yeah, but this family dinner is awesome because, like, you're seeing all these character moments, and Mackenzie just cuts through all the red tape and is just like, are you two banging? To Reese and Chase, who have a history together, and they're like, oh, it's complicated. We're not, but we...
And then Reese is like, yeah, kind of.
So we then find out that Chase left Cape Augusta when he was 18 to work on an oil rig. Basically, he got as far away as he could, as fast as he could. What do you think about, like, what do you think that says about his character?
I think it has to do with what you were saying about he doesn't have the tools to deal with anything, and just the feeling of being judged. A lot of it was him internalizing and externalizing the judgment of him from himself, because he was always comparing himself to Charles and his father and others. He couldn't do that. I don't think Chase could figure out how to do that while still there, and he could not process it, so he had to run. There was no other option that he could see. He didn't know how to slow down, look at himself inwardly, and understand who he is as a person. So he goes on a more destructive path.
Mm-hmm. And it's like one of those things where, like, he doesn't have confidence. Like, he runs, he doesn't, the whole thing is that none of these people are facing what's right in front of them. And he does it because he's not confident. So rather than doing what he needs to do, he runs away from it. He runs as fast as he can. So then Mackenzie goes ahead and asks Reese why she was there. She's like, how did you just know to kind of show up here? It's kind of spooky. Reese says that there's a bunch of strange things about the house and the bog, which really is about the family. And Chase is just kind of like, no, none of it's real. And again, he's pushing this stuff off. What did you think about like their what did you think about their back and forth after that, where she essentially is just like, you're still the same child you were before. You can't face it to anything. You're still you're still the scared boy you always were. What did you
really goes? It's kind of telling because once you know a little more about not Mackenzie. I mean, Reese and her connection to the bog. I mean, she's kind of a ghost herself in the story.
Mm-hmm.
It really feels like she's projecting a lot of her feelings about Chase and about the fact that she's waited for him.
So
she's there then, and he doesn't know what to do about it.
Yeah, and he just doesn't have these emotional tools because he's never taken a single moment to think about it. So find where I'm at. Took a lot of notes for this one, if you couldn't tell. This is probably I will tell you this. This is the only book I will ever say I am the expert on. You know me, I do not have a good memory. I don't think of myself as a critic or anything like that, but this is the book that like lives in me probably for the rest of my life. Like, this is the book that like I think changed me a lot. Like we'll talk about that once we get to some other stuff later in the story, but the next day the kids are getting ready for school and there's ghosts watching them. So Wendy is watching the kids and Charles is watching his brother. And it's I think the Charles thing throughout the story is really symbolic because his brother is right there. And his brother was trying to reach out, but Chase just wouldn't pick up the phone. If Chase had just turned around, he would have seen him. But he didn't. And I think it's a large portion of this story is that they were right there, but they never looked. Mm-hmm. At school, the teacher does give us a talk about like the past and uses a Marx quote that says, all great events happen twice. First time is a tragedy and the second time is a farce. This is paraphrased because she paraphrased it. But...
Isn't that Reese?
No, I think that's the teacher. The teacher says it to them in class because she asks the class, and one of the kids says, "Oh, last time we spoke, we spoke
sure
a little."
That's Reese.
Is that Reese?
Yeah,
Reese is the teacher.
Yeah.
Oh shit, you're right.
Well, guess who's the expert now?
Well, damn. Well, hey, guess you don't know who Reese is, so got you there. I was thinking it was her, but I never it never really clicked. I was like, oh, it's just a character that has red hair.
The daughter from the first family?
Yeah, she's a Maltese.
A Maltese? That's a dog, damn.
Maltese. She is the relative of the man that Vitus kills.
Got it.
So she is the ancestor. So we'll get there. So we'll just talk about it now. So Vitus,
I'm the expert now.
Kills someone, gives him to the bog in order to save the town, to save his family, to give them a future. Now,
that's one part of it. He also did it because
he hates him.
He hates him because this man was very devout, and Vitus was very much of the mindset of it's better to be doing something than on your knees praying.
Yes. We'll get there. Let's get through the issues because it's a couple issues away. So Chase ends up finding a body in the basement as he's doing some construction. So we get to issue 3 just below the surface. It opens with some trauma through generations of Blaines. So you see some images of suicide and things like that of different Blaine family members who are dead. Generational trauma and mental illness. It's there. After the police arrive, Chase is already gone, and Reese says that Chase was a smart man for leaving to think about what he has to do next rather than just acting on action. He's trying to build. He's not trying to destroy. She says, Magnus, sometimes the best thing a man can do is admit he doesn't have the power to fix everything. Sometimes the way to actually help is to take a step back and think about things first, especially things you don't understand. So, he's doing that, and then cut to the next page. He's in a bar fight. What did you think about the bar fight?
I really love the colors. I'm looking at it right now, and it's just a lot, especially because the way once Chase gets overrun with these goddamn racist pricks, he has all these hands reaching out to him, and then he's in the bog. He's sank.
So I think another part about this, I don't know if we've spoken about it yet, but he says, they built this town. They own this town. It sounds like they own the bar and all of that kind of stuff. But Chase lives in a studio apartment. Chase lives where he's building and doing construction. Chase chooses not. He's literally, his entire back has turned to the family. And after he gets his ass kicked, you see the hand come into the water, and it's Magnus, and he says, someone once told me sometimes the best thing a man can do is to take a moment and think things through. So he literally uses the same quote that Reese used on him on Chase. What did you think about Tag's page with the bog monster? Because I thought that would be one important to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was an interesting one because he goes through a gamut of emotions: surprise, fear, and then I don't know if it's anger, and then I don't know if it's fear or he just doesn't know.
I think he's afraid of the monster.
Oh, yeah, but he walks away. He doesn't run away.
Yeah.
He walks away.
So then I'm looking at the image now, and Reese looks out the window, and it says, give, give, give. And she pulls these tapes out of the basement, but I didn't notice that the tapes are held in hands. There's hands holding. The art is like vines, but it's hands. So that's very interesting. And Mackenzie catches her. So, Zach is at school, and there's something interesting. Well, Magnus and Chase have a car ride, and basically he's telling him that Magnus is like, I was poor. I didn't have anything. I took an oath to protect this town from all dangers, and you, Chase Blaine, you are a danger to yourself, to others. I don't know if it's in your blood or what, but this is the way it's always been with your family. Nothing but trouble. And Chase says, every family has its problems. And Magnus says, you have skeletons in your closet, Blaine, and that's not a goddamn metaphor. So it's a very interesting car ride where, he's not... It doesn't feel like he's attacking him as so much. He's like, listen, you need to get gone. You don't need to be here. And Zach is in class, and he's holding himself like he has to go to the bathroom. And this scene was extremely sad to me because
here's the thing. I want to know why Reese is the teacher in both of them.
Yeah, I guess now that doesn't make as much sense, but it could be
it's
she
the
teaches,
same room. I'm looking at the wall.
Well, she teaches the different. What if they use different classes? Like teachers could teach different history, like the same history or whatever, like that. He's younger, but it's a small town, so she could be the history teacher.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that makes sense. It's just I'm not used to that concept.
Yeah, but the poor kid just wants to go to the bathroom, and he can't just say it. He can't be like, "Hey, I have to go to the bathroom." He's like, "Oh, it made me sad," because then he goes to the bathroom, and the toilet starts filling up with frogs, and then a hand comes out of the toilet. It's like, God damn, that sucks. So then, back at the house, Chase is confronted by Charles. What did you make of that scene? It's the one where Chase is like,
yeah,
I need your help.
I'm definitely looking at it. He's not afraid of him at all. Even though it's clear that Charles is not, human or alive, it's just a bogified figure of Charles, and Chase just starts crying, and then he just dissolves. Granted, I like that this is an internal thing.
Yeah.
It's a part of his grieving.
Yeah, because he's like, I don't know how to raise these kids. I don't know how to make a family. I need your help.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not there.
He's not going to confront this consciously.
Yeah.
It has to come from within, in a place that he has no control, like a dream.
Yeah. So then he goes to the school to pick up Zach after the incident. And Mackenzie confronts them and is like, hey, Reese is stealing shit from our house. Like, I don't know what's wrong with her. And they find out there's these tapes. And on these tapes, as you may have heard during our theme, is a recording from old Grandpa Blaine. Grandpa killed a farmhand and buried him in the wall to sacrifice him. It was coming for me, like it came from my grandfather, our family. I know now what's really scratching behind those walls. I can hear it. In order to receive, first you must give. And it just keeps repeating, and it repeats, and it repeats, and the bulb in the room explodes. And
after filling with juice.
Yeah. And
the juice.
Reese says these words, they're a biggest part of me as they are a part of you. And that brings us to issue 4. I'll let you talk about the kiss thing, but I did want to note that they're at like his bonfire, and Chase goes up to Charles, and it's clear that Chase wants to kiss Reese, and he goes up to Charles, and Charles says, hey now, be cool, and Chase says, Charles, what should I do? And Charles says, trust me, it'll be obvious when you get there. And I don't think this is good advice, but it's not just advice like you'll get it. It's more like have the confidence in yourself to know what you know is best.
Mm-hmm.
But you can talk about what happens to poor Reese.
So Chase starts walking in the woods because he sees Reese walking in there with a lantern, and then something just branches come out, and he just stops, and he loses her. And Reese comes up on a bogified being, and who she thinks it's like the ghost of the idea of Chase for her.
Yeah.
And because they were having a good time, and then he walks away to talk to his brother real quick, and she's probably, this was probably born out of the thought of, why is he walking away? Why is he going somewhere? And then she's heading into the water. She watches him head into the water, into the bog, and then she sees him a figure drowning. It's Chase drowning, and then he lunges out for her, and then pulls her down deep, and then it's Pickles, and Pickles kisses her. And so it is in that moment that something changes for Reese.
So she's enthralled. She's connected to the bog as the Blaines are, but in a very different way. Because I wanted to confirm that with Tim, because I've always thought about it, and there's a change in her lettering.
Yeah, the bubble becomes black with white letters.
Yeah, so it's something else. She's a conduit, like in a way that she's like.
She gets a little bit boggy.
Yeah.
Feeling boggy, punk? Then hop.
So, yeah, it's poor Reese.
Yeah.
So then we find out it's actually her telling the story to Magnus at the diner, where Magnus is essentially like, you never got over Chase, but I was always right there. And it's like, oh, he's in love with her. That's so sad.
And that's really the real reason that he hates Chase.
Yeah, because he got everything. He had everything he always wanted. And it's funny because in the next So we meet Rose, who is Chase's mother, who left them when they were young, and she's in a mental hospital. And she's been very quiet for years. Like she's the only way she like communicates is blinking, but she's talking again. She's drawing, and she's making. She's saying there's something in the attic.
Go in the attic.
But then we go back to the police station where Jordan, the other police officer, is delivering the tests from the body from the basement. And you see that everything from Magnus's desk is on the floor. They don't comment on it. They don't do anything like that. But I think it's a very beautiful touch by Josh, the artist, to show the reaction to what happened with Reese. Like he was like, he's heartbroken and he tossed all his stuff on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so it turns out the body was pickled in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
And like they're like, how does that
Lots
happen?
of pickles here.
It's not connected to the bog itself, which later we find out it is. So later that night, Chase is laying in bed, and Zach comes in because he's scared and he wants to be in the room with him. And Mackenzie comes in soon after, and they're all laying in Chase's bed, and Chase is telling him about a story from their childhood about him and Charles, how they go on adventures, and how Charles would always be the one afraid. And Mackenzie's like, no, he wasn't. My father's told me this story. You were the one who was afraid. And it was him trying to make himself like them feel more comforted, but they're like, we know the truth. You don't have to always lie to us. I think it's important, but I think that page is one of two pages that are some of my all-time favorite comic book pages because it's such a intimate look at like familial love. Like it's like he's there to protect them. And it's a intense scene. But I know the end of this issue was something you were like, whoa. So talk about that a little bit.
Oh, so I mean, well, we have to talk about Magnus looking for something in the bog, because there's two very different things that happen in the end of this issue. And this is where we really first see what's going on with Reese. Magnus is going in, grabbing samples from the bog, and then he's attacked with his own, like, I guess it's a fishing, like, hook thing.
It's like it's like a hook.
Yeah, it's like a long hook cane with a barbed end.
Mm-hmm.
And then Reese has is using this moment as a conduit to give over Magnus to Boggy, and the bog monster ends up kissing. Well, it's kissing, but it's also just draining the life out of Magnus, and she's slightly distraught over it, and Tag is following in, and then the dog comes back, and so then it ends up with Chase going into the attic, and I think this is the story that is told of the backstory of the family by was it Vitus?
Yes, Vitus Blaine.
Yeah, Vitus Blaine, and the first thing that Chase reads is, "I write these words as a man transformed by providence. The earth is fertile. I now prosper." That is the thing that he received by killing his daughter's lover.
Vanity.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the end of volume 1.
Well, no, that's not what.
Yeah. Sorry, you got the other part.
All the papers are everywhere as the attic seals itself, and it fills with water, and Chase begins to drown, surrounded by the pages of his ancestors' manifesto. And he drowns. He completely drowns. And that's how the first volume of it ends. And I think I said to you, what did I say? This page slaps? Did I say that?
I think it was that.
Because it slaps. And in this time, he's being drowned by the generational trauma of the family. And he's surrounded by it. He's surrounded by the origin of the trauma. He's sinking in it. And he doesn't know what to do about it. Because the first issue of Volume 2 is A Place of Understanding. It is about the story of Vitus and all of that. But then what happens with Chase is he kind of wakes up or something.
Yeah, at the end of issue 5, he wakes up.
Yeah, and he's just surrounded by water and paper, and it's like raining on him because of a massive storm. Yeah, there's no way it just drained out. It's just there. He was literally drowning in these feelings, this trauma. It was a literal, but it was also a mainly emotional thing.
So, issue 5 is pretty much just a flashback to Maine in 1673. It's a harsh winter where the town is dying from the lack of food, and we meet Mouth Rasmussen. Mouth Rasmussen. I've never had to say these words out loud because no one's ever wanted to talk about the book. Who is a man of God.
Now we do.
He argues with Vitus, who is burning a woman who died rather than leaving her to be ripped apart by the wolves. They light her on fire, and I think it's the coloring here by Kurt Michael Russell is so fucking good with the fire. But I did just want to read the page because it's something that's like, I want it to be out loud. Through his sorrowful anguish, Moth fashioned scripture into a hurried funeral service. He was, no doubt, compelled, but his words died on blistering wind. Instead, I heard the prayers of all the suffering people around me, in the howling gusts, the hollow eyes, and the sputter of flame. Prayers for food, prayers for relief, prayers for salvation. And for the first time in all my life, I wondered, are those prayers heard by anyone? I grew embittered at the thought. For the death of all those prayers birthed a realization too great to bear. That the world is vast, and we, faithful or not, are alone within it. I was like, damn, Vitus, you okay? And so then after that,
words.
He argues with his family, and they're like, you lead them. And to do that, you must allow him to lead you. Like, you need to believe in God. And he's like, and his wife says, we are exactly where we are meant to be, where he wants us to be. It is vanity to even question the path he has put us on. And Vitus, once again, says, then I shall choose vanity over a funeral pyre. And it's like, Vitus, you're scaring your kids. But then he gets a call from the bog. So what do you, so when he gets called to the bog, he eventually goes back, and in the bog, he meets the Overlord. Like, the only way to describe it is the Overlord. It's like the head of everything.
He's like summoned out into the woods. He doesn't even bother to put anything warm on. He just kind of walks out there.
Yeah.
Actually, does he? Well, this happens a few times. He feels a calling, and it keeps happening. And then he just goes out into the middle of the night shirtless. And I love the page of him going through the woods, and you see bodies haunting him as he tries to go through the wilderness of the New World.
Yeah. This is a great fucking, every issue is fucking great. But like, there's some really good, I don't know if Joshua did the lettering for this, the Call of the Bog, or if it was Campbell, but it's so beautiful. Like, the coloring in this issue, the purple is beautiful. Everything about this is, and like, the town is dying, and he's watching his daughter prosper in love with Molth, and he makes her this little bracelet, and the bracelet is important. And she makes it for him, and he says, wear it. It would be an honor, and perhaps someday I can bestow upon you something of even greater permanence. And the next panel is Vitus just watching in the distance, like, I'm going to kill you. Then he gets the call again,
Dad
and
stuff.
he sees the future, like, he sees the house.
Yeah, and he tries to walk into it, and he's washed away and dragged down, and he gets the family motto that he had. This is the first incidence of the family motto being said.
Yeah. And that is the head of whatever this being is. That's it. What you see on that page.
A deep one.
Yeah. So he comes back, and it's been a couple days, and he's like, I've seen the light of our Savior. He knows what he needs to do. And what he needs to do is kill his daughter's boyfriend.
Wait, hold on. Are you telling me that the Overlord is Jesus?
Mm-hmm. That's Jesus, Jake. You found him. So Vitus...
Jesus didn't really walk on water. He went underneath it.
Listens to the Lord and kills Moth. Strangles him with this rope. He puts a noose around his neck, drags him out to the river. As he's dragging him, the bracelet falls off in the reeds. Picks him up, tosses him into the bog. He's crying. He regrets what he does, but it takes him. And I had come to give, and in turn, I expected to receive. Fast forward to autumn. Everything's great. Everything's growing. Town is prospering. He renames the town after his daughter. He renames it after the person whose love he took. And there's a panel of everyone happy, holding fruit, and being bountiful, and it's her standing in the middle, crying. And that's when Chase wakes up.
I think it's also important to note that the first panel of this autumn in 1675 is there's a lot of grave markers.
I didn't even... Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, there's a lot of them that line the town. And with the prosperity, for the town to prosper after one sacrifice, it's...
I think a lot of people died during the winter, and it took more time to even get the bounty.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings us to issue 6, All You'll Ever Need. As the family's looking at the outside, which is now flooding, they find Magnus, who is dead. Now, the reason I think they find him is because they didn't sacrifice him. Like, they weren't the ones to give.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important because right after that, Reese shows up.
Yeah. And she's got the crook, and she just says, I need help.
So, this issue is, I think it's mostly ghosts. And let's talk about Mackenzie's scene first, because it shows a scene with her parents and why they left the house and left the area and they went to California. Wendy tells Charles he must face the past in the eye, look at the past in the eyes, and then their company can wait. They need to figure out his stuff first. She says to him, and when you finally confront it, I hope you'll understand. You have all you'll ever need right here, everything you've ever needed to heal. He had his family, but it was something that he could never really face. And as much as he built around that rotting kind of base. What does Zach see?
So Zach sees a vision of Augusta. And in the vision, he's her younger brother, Brahm. And they're walking through the woods, and she's more or less finding how Mouth died, and knows what is going on. And it's just more and more clear to her what happened. And I think on some level, the second last panel is Zach's face, and he's all just watching it, stunned, wet, and there's a sound effect, Rourke, or I don't know what that's supposed to be in this context. Is it something?
Rourke?
Do you know what that is?
I don't know what it is. Oh, it's a frog.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's the frogs, because the frog showed up in the toilet.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. But also, before we get into what Chase sees, let's talk about what initiates Chase seeing his vision.
So, Chase's vision is brought upon by Reese,
Conduit Reese.
Yep, the enthralled Reese kissing him and basically putting the monster into him so he can see. Will soon arrive at a place of understanding. And when he wakes up from that, he is being buried in the wall by his grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
His grandfather is like, I have no choice. I had to do it. It was coming for me. It was coming for me, like it always does, for our family.
I want to know why his grandfather built him his sacrifice into the wall. Do you think it's because
he was building it to block off the tunnels?
Yeah, I know that, but like, do you think it has something to do with the bog monster having to look and search for it?
I think it was more of like he's done facing it. Like he doesn't want to face it at all anymore.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
And he blocked off the tunnel, and that's why I think their father had so many issues, because like he wasn't fully informed of the situation.
And then there is more of the Zach, because that is broken up, and Augusta finds the identical bracelet and finds the body of Mouth bogified, and then she is kissed and she's dragged down for a time, and then we get another vision from Chase where
she says to Zach, set us free.
Mm-hmm. And then Chase sees a vision of Charles, and it's to sacrifice his own child. He was going to sacrifice his firstborn, Mackenzie, to the bog monsters. And that's where Chase really understands that this is the way to set them free. And then there's one of the best pages of Reese standing over Chase and him singing, "No, Charles, listen to me." And then there's all of the ghosts in the background, and at the center, it's Zach and Mackenzie holding each other.
So this page, when I read this initially, I think I read it probably a month or so before it came out. And I was looking at this page, and I looked at it. I stared at this page for a long time, because I think this is the first time. I wrote about this in the one thing, but this is the first time I felt like I could see how I felt. Like I saw what mental illness feels like. I understood what being depressed is like, what anxiety. It's all of these faces of the people before you, the people you've let down, the people you could let down, the people who rely on you, your own demons. All of this stuff is all coming down on you at one time, and it's coming from every direction, and you feel helpless. And it's just...
No, I agree with that. I also feel the same way with the final page of Volume 1, where he's drowning and surrounded by all of this history. Your history is tiring you out. It's bringing you down. Both of those images are, one, they're perfectly drawn images. They're perfectly just they're piece of wonderful art. They show that feeling very well.
I get emotional every time I look at this. Like tears in my eyes, and I own this page. Like this is the page that I have on my wall. And it's I don't think it's depressing to me, because it's not a reminder of that feeling. It's the reminder of that, like, you're not alone, and like that, those feelings aren't, you're making those feelings, those are inside of you. Like you can control what you can face. And the following pages, Chase is on his knees, and he's crying, and he says, I don't think I can. And before he can say, I can't do this, Zach says, yes, you can, Uncle Chase. Zach speaks for the first time, and he's like, you can do this. I believe, like, he believes in him. And Chase says, I promised myself for the first time in my life I was ready. I wanted to build something, a place where you both could feel safe.
Yeah, and it's really denoting that he has to sacrifice someone he loves.
And that's his that's his fear. And Reese is like, You've done nothing, Chase. You're just like your brother. He didn't do anything. He didn't face it. Not ever. Not even when you give it all that it wants.
And she's still channeling the
enthralled. Bog. Yeah, so she's saying that the way you think you have to do this, it's not what you need to do. And Mackenzie hugs him and says, "It's okay, Uncle Chase. You don't have to do this alone. You have all you'll ever need right here." And it harkens back to what Wendy said to Charles about, you have everything that you need to heal. You just have to realize that. You need to take a second and look.
Mm-hmm. And then chapter 7.
Things. This is where the heat gets turned up to 11.
Old flames.
There's the opening of this is so good because it's the bog white in the distance looking back.
Pickles.
Yeah, and it says maybe. Just maybe this time it can be different. You can confront it, understand it for what it is before it resurfaces.
And then you get a good page that is the foil to it, with instead it's Chase in the manor with one window lit and he's standing in it staring out the window, and then he's interrupted. But by who?
Your boy, Tig.
Tig is the one who says it.
He's a great dog.
But yeah, no, like some ghost. It doesn't show who.
Oh yes,
says his name.
Yeah, huh? Someone says. I think it's probably one of the kids. I don't know. Yeah, they're both asleep.
Everyone else is asleep.
Who's?
Tig is the only one awake.
The dog said it.
It was the dog. No, I think it was the ghost of Charles. But
yeah, it's probably Charles. So
because as you go through the motions, he talks to Tig and he says, I thought I told you to stay with the kids," and he says, "I can trust you," right? As he's walking away, and it focuses in on a portrait of it's either his grandfather or Charles.
Yeah, it kind of looks
I think
like
it's
Charles.
the grandfather. Yeah, but the eyes are a yellow.
The eyes are important, and I'll explain that at the end. So he goes back down. He goes downstairs to lay next to the kids and get some rest. And the other cop, I think, James, is that his name? James? Is that what I said? The other cop basically is like, can't get a hold of them. He can't find Magnus. He's like, oh shit, I have to go out there, and it's flooding. So he takes a boat, and Chase wakes up because the flooding is happening. And Mackenzie wakes up and she goes, "Well, I'll go with you to check it out because they're going to go down to the basement." And there's this line is really important because it's them two talking without any of the lies, any of the sugarcoating. And Chase says, I ran, and all I ever really escaped were the good things. My brother, your mom, getting to see you and Zach born. But all the bad shit, it managed to stick around." And Mackenzie says, maybe you can't run from your monsters, you know? Maybe you just have to learn to live with them. And I think that is one of the most important interactions in the book because it's about dealing with your, like, you can't kill your monsters. They're always going to be there. You have to learn to live with them and figure out how to do that.
Mm-hmm. And then you get the confrontation. As they start going down towards the basement, and the tunnels are open. And
that's when the he actually goes to.
Boggy's coming in.
Well, they hear the phone, but the phone, no one else hears it. And the bog monster chokes him with the phone line, and he's like, "Collect."
Well, I wanted to talk about the page of the waters going into the basement.
Oh yeah, because that's beautiful.
Boggy starts coming up, and his eyes are just pure red.
When the monster finally gets to him and strangles him, he comes face to face with his father.
But then again, you also got to remember, Boggy has come to collect, but also if you look at the phone, things are coming out of it.
Yeah. Also, the picture earlier was his father because this is the first time we see his dad, and this scene it's a lot because he's confronting his father about how he acted. Like he's like, Charles and Wendy are dead instead of dealing with all this shit like every single goddamn Blaine.
This is the key of how generational trauma continues to be passed down. And I think you and I have dealt with that a lot in our own lives. And I mean, everyone does. But, I mean, we're dealing with a lot right now of that right now. But I like this. There's one when he finally really confronts his father. He says, "Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you do anything? Yeah. Charles and Wendy are dead. Instead of dealing with all this shit like every single goddamn Blaine, you let your children, your grandchildren, shoulder the burden because his father didn't give the monsters anything."
Yeah. Even if we couldn't beat this goddamn thing, goddamn it, Dad, at least we wouldn't have lost everything that mattered in the process. And then his dad says, "Want only what you have, take only what you need." And I think that is the most important motto in the book. I think it's the most important thing.
And I think there's a big thing of, oh, Dad, I wish someone would have given you what you needed.
Yeah. And I think that's where it's like, you can't.
There's
a
lot of the beautiful like paneling in this of like just the setting as the deputy is coming into the manor.
That purple is probably one of my favorite colors ever.
Yeah, that's a nice one. The colors in this series are phenomenal. The art is just chef's kiss.
Yeah,
everything about this is chef's kiss.
By the time people hear this, they're going to be able to see Joshua Hixson's rendition of the grave robber. So
yeah, because the grave robber sat down for a portrait.
He didn't. The problem is, like, I could never really get a good look at him, so I had to give people vague details. So Chase comes back and he hears, "We need you," and the bog monster's in the house, and the whole family goes. So first, he knocks Mackenzie into the bookcase and she's knocked unconscious. But then everyone starts fighting the monster. Everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important because, like, even Zach...
Zach stabs it in the eye.
Yeah. This timid kid, like, just goes at it. And then there's this panel of Chase holding a sledgehammer and says, I'm the one you want, so come on. Like...
Come collect your due.
And the next page with the monster on fire holding Zach, pulling the flashlight out of his eye is so fucking good.
And he's on fire. It's awesome.
And then Mackenzie gets woken up by her mom.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, your brother called
Chase
for you.
is going to town, beating the shit out of that thing. And then that's Mackenzie coming in with the hook.
Yeah.
And she hooks it right in the face.
Breaks it off.
And then, yeah.
And then he knocks away Tague, Zach, and Mackenzie. And then the broken piece of the wood from the hook lands in front of Reese.
Mm-hmm.
And Chase is still, like, swinging this sledgehammer to this thing, actually, like, fighting a monster. And then it kisses him. And as
one does.
As it kisses him, Reese shoves the broken wood through the monster and into Chase. That's a
stellar page.
It is, yeah. My problem is every time I look at this, I then go to where Joss is represented for art. And I'm like, I could buy more, but I'm like, I shouldn't buy more pages from this book.
I forget, which page do you own?
I own the page. I own the page with Chase on the ground and all the. I own that page.
Yeah, that's the one I thought you owned.
Yeah, it's on my wall above me right now, actually. And then I own his. He did a story for DC where it's a panel with Killer Moth, Professor Pig, and Harley Quinn, and I was like, "Come on, you did this. This is for me." Like, you were like, "All right, Dan, you got to buy another page." There's another one coming soon that I also need, but.
Well, everybody, Hixson draws Grimace.
Oh, fuck. Oh my god, he did Peacekeeper this week, which is incredible. So, we're here. We're at the finale, issue 8. Mm-hmm. It'll be obvious when you get there. How does this one open, Jake?
Click, click. Chase opens the door, and it's the future. he's older. It's his birthday. Much like how the first issue started with his brother's birthday. And he comes home to Reese. And it's clear at this moment that they're living together, married. You don't know yet if this is the confirmed future or this is just what Chase is seeing as he's dying, or if this whole issue is something he sees as he's dying.
So then the telephone rings.
Mm-hmm.
And as in the beginning, it rings, and you can see him fear, and he says, I'll get it. And he answers the phone, and he answers it this time. And when he answers it, it flips back to the fight, him bleeding. And he says, I'm okay. It's dead, I think. Want only what you have. And then he's like, I can't leave this a chance. I have no choice. And he has to go into the basement. And it flashes back to the vision of his grandfather. And basically he was walling it off, buried forever in the tunnels. So there's more down in the basement that no one was ready to face because they didn't know it was there. And the bog monster starts to get up, and the officer blows its head off with a shotgun, which is pretty cool. And he takes the family and Reese outside to escape while Chase goes and to confront the basement. But then we flip back to the future, and who's he talking to on the phone?
Zach's here. He's talking to Mackenzie, and about the party and how Chase already knows because he walked in before he was supposed to, and she was just calling to tell her Aunt Reese that they were going to be late.
Yeah.
And then Zach walks in from college. He's got some laundry he's got to do.
And he says to Reese, he's like, you coddle him. She says, oh, please, the college kid.
This is important. Oh, please. He's a college kid. We should be glad that he washes his clothes at all. Dan, how many times did you come home with a garbage bag full of clothes?
Well, the thing is, I had enough clothes that would last me that long. Like, I had so many clothes.
Here's the goddamn thing. You had free laundry at college.
Yeah. Listen, I never wear an outfit twice. Like, I mean, not like after I wash it, I'll wear it twice, but I'll never rewear a shirt.
People.
So we go back to the past, and Chase covers the sledgehammer in a rag and lights it on fire and goes down into the basement where...
That sounds useful.
Yeah. It's a good idea. And his grandfather's there, and it said it was coming for you, for our family, and rather than face it, you tried to wall it off. Well, the walls are finally coming down, Grandpa. It's like, Chase is like, he is denying what his family before him did. He's we can't keep doing this.
Augusta is there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, is she behind the wall?
Yes, she's behind the wall that his grandfather's standing on, leaning against.
Everyone's there. Everyone. Vitus is there, and he's walking through, and he goes, I know you're down here. Where are you? Where the fuck are you?
And then his sister-in-law and some unidentified figures.
Yeah. And then he comes into this room with his brother.
Mm-hmm.
So he's talking to his brother, and when he gets into the room, he says, trust me, it will be obvious when you get there. As he said to him all the way back in that night. And the family must leave
got gabagooled
with the cop. But they're like, no, we have to go back. We have to help Chase. Like, we can't just leave him. And then Chase finally tells Charles that he let their monsters keep them apart, let them keep them quiet. I'm just going to read it because it's... there's so much I should have said. I should have been there. I should have been part of your life, part of your family's life, but I missed it. I missed you. I missed all of it. Your kids, Charles, you and Wendy have the most amazing kids. Everything I've learned from them, they've learned from you. I see you coming through them, and it's the most incredible thing. It only makes me miss you more, and it makes me regret all the time we lost. We let our monsters keep us apart. We let them keep us quiet. And we should have been fighting them together. Chase, it's time. Time to look the past in the eyes to confront it.
Mm-hmm.
This scene is a lot because it's like
And then he goes, John Henry right on the damn wall.
But it's important that Chase talks about that his kids are like him and they've been given these traits and things, that it's not just all negative from your family. Like you get things from your parents that sometimes you don't realize because you're not ready to face the bad things. But Chase is like, they got all of this from you. Like they got the monsters and the positives. So it's like finally talking about that it's a balance, and that's what it's all about. And then he destroys the wall, and behind the wall is the monster.
Mm-hmm.
And the monster tries to drown him. And he says, you dumb son of a bitch, this whole place is going down, but you know what? Fine. Let's go down together. And then I think this is the first time we see this full white light color.
Yeah, it's... I think it's important to understand that this is the sacrifice. He was willing to sacrifice himself, and that was enough.
Yeah, that he was going to sacrifice himself and not someone
else. And all
else.
of the ghosts pull back. They're purified. They're not tainted by the way everyone is looking at the situation. They're not tainted by the curse of the Blaines. They're seen for who they were, and their positive and negative attributes kind of equal out, and you remember them for how they are and not just all of this bullshit trauma. And they're not bogified anymore. You see them, they're just themselves.
Yeah. And then it comes back to the present.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to read. So everyone's here for his surprise party, and he's sitting down at the table, and he goes, I do about as well with words as I do with houses. So if anyone has a sledgehammer, and he's quiet for a moment, and he says, today is not about me. It's about each of you. And I want to thank you. You gave me, an opportunity, a chance to build something. I'm sorry. Give me a minute. And then Zach says, it's okay, Uncle Chase. Mackenzie says, we're all here for you. And Reese says, we're not going anywhere. And that flashes back to Chase coming out of the house. Flashback to the future, and he says, each of you gave me a chance to build something that I'll never have to run from, that I'd never want to run from. Something instead to carry forward, a shared history and a shared future. Spent with those you talk to even when you're scared, those you comfort even when you're hurting, those who you love, and those who love you. You gave me a family. End.
And then I really like the last page. It's got just the last panel is awesome. It's Chase looking at it as it burns to the ground. That damn manor. So also, I finally figured out who the statues were in the front.
It's Agusin and what's his name, isn't it?
Brown, yeah.
Yeah. So the fire in his eyes
was truly hurt, and the one that the bog monster really wanted as a sacrifice.
Yeah. So his eyes are with the fire because no matter what, those monsters are still inside him. Mm-hmm. It's symbolic of that. You can escape them. You can never escape them, but you can live with them. And I think these last 2 pages of what I just read is something that has stuck with me. It's the spent with those you talk to even when you're scared, those you comfort even when you're hurting. It's just about the fact that you have to face these things and you can't just run away, that you can't just hide this stuff. And sometimes it's hard and sometimes it sucks, but you have to do what you need to get better or find what better looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it ends.
Yeah. And this is a pinnacle of horror.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book. It's not just because my name's in it.
Yeah, your name is in it. You got a special thanks.
Yeah,
because you simped for the book so hard that you got people reading it.
I don't even think it's. I found something in this book of value that I've never found in other media.
Yeah.
I think it's changed a lot of the way I approach things and how I think about my own mental health and how I have to deal with it rather than continuously run away as I had been for years prior to this. And I think that's what a lot of power that can come from art is that you take from it what you will in any way that you will. So I'm glad you're here with me. It's been it's been a hell of a week.
Yes, it has been a hell of a week.
It's been a hell of a 3 years. Thanks for doing this. Just gotta face those monsters. And I think ours is coming now.
What? Oh, shit.
It's over. I finally caught up to you, and it's time to end this. No musical battles, no reboots. Just the two McMahon boys buried 6 feet under.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen there, fucko. A lot of people have tried to stop us, but only one of us has died, and we came back.
Wait, what? Never mind. I'll hold them off. Go light this place up. We never really expected inheritances anyway. Time to face our monsters.
Good luck.
Ah!
Not gonna happen. Only one person walks away in these stories. I'm gonna consume your soul.
We got something for you to consume.
What?
These nuts!
The fire will be roaring any second. Shit.
I got this. Seems like Great Uncle Chase left us something when they rebuilt this place.
Holy shit! A flaming sledgehammer?
Go start the car.
Finish it. Finish me. Kill the monster, Dan. As much as you don't want to see it, we're the same. You can never escape the monsters. We always come back for you, for him, for everyone.
Plenty of graves for you to rob in hell, you freak bastard.
Well, we did it. GateSlashers is over.
Seems like the grave robber's dead, but you know how these horror movie things work. Let's go home and end this Halloween from hell.
All right, I have the TARDIS wheeze all set up in the theme song. I'm gonna head home for the night. Glad you're back though, Dan. Just glad I didn't get abducted this time and you didn't die.
Excuse me? Have I died before? Jake said something eerily similar.
Whoops, no, it's nothing. Have a good night. Oh, and there's some package on your desk. I think it's a book from, like, some weird indie publisher or something. I don't know. Anyway, see you tomorrow. Bye.
Reading. This book stinks. Oh, this leather is horrible quality. Ooh, a mysterious note, though. Groovy. Just what my stress levels need. Dear Gatecrashers, heard you knuckleheads are in the demon slaying business? This book is your fucking problem now? It's signed A.W. Who the fuck is A.W.? Oh, it's in Latin. Awesome. Guess I'm sounding this one out. Klaatu Barada Nictu?
Join us next year for GateSlashers 2 Dead by Dawn.